Why does it feel like narcissists are everywhere? The Narc Survivor YouTube channel, along with other similar content creators, have had a significant impact on raising awareness about narcissistic abuse and its effects on mental health. This channel's direct impact on reducing narcissism itself may be less clear, but it has certainly contributed to mental health conversations. It has helped many people navigate and recover from abusive relationships with narcissistic individuals. At the time of uploading this video, the Narc Survivor YouTube channel has 190,000 subscribers and 50 million views. Many viewers have reported that the channel helped them to recognize the signs of narcissistic abuse, which eventually led them to leave toxic relationships or marriages. Personal stories shared by survivors in the comments or on social media often indicate that watching these videos empowered them to take action. Whether that meant ending an abusive relationship, seeking therapy, or finding the strength to walk away from a toxic marriage. These stories suggest that the channel has provided crucial support and validation for people in unhealthy relationships, saving them from prolonged harm. Narcissistic abuse can have devastating effects on mental health. Victims often experience depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts. The Narc Survivor channel provides much needed validation for people who feel trapped or misunderstood in abusive situations. By offering coping strategies, emotional support, and survival stories, the channel has helped many viewers find the strength to keep going, avoiding suicidal thoughts, and reaching out for professional help. Numerous comments describe how viewers were able to overcome the emotional turmoil caused by narcissistic abuse, or how they were encouraged to seek therapy or support groups. This channel has provided a significant resource for those struggling with feelings of hopelessness. The awareness and coping mechanisms offered by the channel has helped people recognize toxic work environments and assert their boundaries, potentially saving their careers from long-term psychological harm. Viewers have reported that the insights from the channel help them to regain confidence, ultimately move away from toxic work environments. This empowerment may have led to career changes, better job prospects, or improved relationships with colleagues. Many individuals have shared their personal recovery stories in the comments or on social media. These testimonies highlight how life-changing the channel's content have been in recognizing abuse, ending toxic relationships, and improving mental health. There are a substantial amount of reports to suggest that it has had a meaningful and life-saving impact for many people. However, despite the growth of this channel, recent data indicates a significant rise in mental health diagnosis. In the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, the global prevalence of anxiety and depression increased by 25%. In the United States, between 2019 and 2023, mental health diagnosis rose by nearly 40%, with generalized anxiety disorder and ADHD being the most common diagnosis in 2023. In Australia, there has been a 50% increase in mental illnesses among the youth, particularly teenage girls. A trend exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. These statistics highlight a substantial and concerning rise in mental health issues globally, underscoring the need for enhanced mental health services and support systems. There has also been a growing concern over a rise in narcissism, particularly in recent years, which has been driven by changes in society, culture, and technology. Researchers have pointed to factors like the increasing prevalence of social media, which encourages self-promotion and comparison, contributing to narcissistic traits. Studies suggest that younger generations are more likely to exhibit narcissistic behaviours due to a shift in cultural values toward individualism, instant gratification, and self-esteem. The Narcissistic Personality Inventory data, which is a commonly used measure of narcissistic traits, has shown a significant increase in narcissistic behaviour among American college students over the past 40 years. One study found that from 1980 to 2006, MPI scores increased by about 30%. The growth of social media platforms since the mid-2000s has been linked to an increase in narcissistic behaviour. The constant need for validation, self-promotion and attention on platforms like Instagram and Facebook has contributed to the rise in narcissistic tendencies, as these platforms reward individuals for showcasing idealized versions of themselves. There has been a shift towards more individualistic values that encourages people to focus on personal success. Research comparing generations shows that millennials and Gen Z score higher on narcissistic traits than previous generations. These trends point to a broader cultural shift towards narcissistic tendencies, such as self-absorption, entitlement, and a lack of empathy. The rise in narcissism and mental health issues is not confined to the West, although it does appear more prominently documented in Western countries. And this is due to cultural, societal, and research factors. In Asian, African, and Middle Eastern countries, these cultures traditionally prioritize group harmony over individual achievement, which might suppress overt displays of narcissists. So covert narcissism may be more common or visible in non-Western countries, where individuals may seek admiration through passive-aggressive behaviour, victimhood, or subtle manipulation, rather than blatant self-aggrandizement. Globalization and modernization are introducing Western values, which may contribute to a rise in narcissism, especially among younger generations exposed to social media and global pop culture. For instance, research in countries like China and India has noted an increase in individualism, particularly in urban areas, where values like personal success and self-promotion are becoming more prominent. Mental health conditions are rising worldwide, including in non-Western countries. Urbanization, economic stress, societal change, and stigma around seeking help contribute to the growing burden of mental illness in rapidly developing countries such as India or China. The pressures of modernization, such as intense academic competition, workplace stress, and shift in family structures, have been linked to rising rates of anxiety, depression, and even suicide. Stigma remains a significant barrier to addressing mental health issues in many non-Western cultures, which may underreport or misdiagnose cases. The rise in narcissism and mental health issues is a global phenomenon. It's more prominently documented in Western societies, but non-Western countries are also experiencing these same trends, driven by globalization, modernization, and changing social dynamics. Covert narcissism is likely to be more prominent or observable in non-Western countries, due to cultural norms emphasizing modesty, humility, and group harmony. These norms discourage overt plays of narcissistic traits, which may lead individuals with narcissistic tendencies to adopt more subtle behavior. Although covert narcissism can be more damaging than overt narcissism, because it is harder to recognize and address, which often leaves victims confused, doubting themselves, or emotionally drained. Dr. Ramani has stated in several of her videos that 1 in 6 people are narcissists, She also mentioned that this number is likely to be even higher in cities. She is referring to individuals who display significant narcissistic traits, rather than those who just have mild traits. This means that in urban areas, 20% of the population may possess strong narcissistic traits, which is likely due to environmental and cultural factors that emphasize self-focus and status. There are also many other personality disorders and general toxicity. Approximately 5 to 15% of the population has a diagnosable custody disorder, which may include narcissistic, borderline, antisocial, or histrionic. Including people with traits could easily bring this to 30%. Then there's cluster A disorders, which may affect 6 to 12 of the population. These disorders include paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal. 30% of the population may display traits of cluster A disorders. Cluster C disorders likely affect 5 to 15% of the population. These disorders include avoidant, dependent, and obsessive compulsive. Cluster C traits likely affect a significant portion of the population, possibly 30 to 50% or more. So if we're talking about how many people possess some degree of traits or behaviours associated with personality disorders, the total is 110% of the population, which obviously cannot overlap entirely. And keep in mind that these are only the traits or behaviours of personality disorders. This does not include toxic behaviours. It doesn't include people who are emotionally manipulative, negative, abusive, or controlling, as these are separate from those specific traits tied to personality disorders, and yet they can still have a massive impact on people's lives. Estimates for the prevalence of toxic people in society can be as high as 20 to 30% of individuals engaging in harmful behaviours, which brings the total of people with personality disorder traits and toxic behaviours to as much as 140%. This means that everyone is exposed to or exhibits some degree of toxic traits or dysfunctional behaviours, whether it's within themselves or in their relationships, families, or workplaces. The overlap also suggests that many individuals are exhibiting traits from multiple clusters, and yet many people present perfect lives. As a result of social expectations and pressure, they feel the need to meet these standards to gain approval, avoid judgment, or fit in, when in fact perfectionism is a trait that is associated with several personality disorders, especially obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It can drive people to display a flawless exterior, even when the internal reality is far from perfect, because they may hold conflicting beliefs or behaviours which cause discomfort. So to avoid this, they may suppress or deny their struggles, focusing on portraying a perfect image to reconcile the discrepancy between reality and their desired self-image. Denial and projection can also play a role here. They may struggle with emotional or relationship issues, but they are projecting an image of having it all together to convince themselves and other people that everything is fine. Because maybe they have a fear of vulnerability. Maybe they just want to hide their insecurities, flaws, or struggles because they fear being judged or rejected. The idea of being perceived as imperfect might feel threatening to their sense of self-worth, especially in cultures where vulnerability is seen as a weakness. People may go to great lengths to appear untouchable or invulnerable. They may constantly compare themselves to other people on social media, which can lead them to feel inadequate if their lives don't measure up to the polished image presented by others online, to where they may have developed narcissistic tendencies, which are associated with a need to constantly project superiority and perfection. So they may go to extreme lengths to craft an idealized self-image, even at the cost of emotional authenticity or connection. Well, the reality is that their self-worth is entirely dependent on external validation. The truth is that their idea of perfection is just a facade. It serves as a defense mechanism against vulnerability, judgment, and fear. Authenticity, vulnerability, and mental health awareness are key to breaking down these facades and fostering healthier relationships both with ourselves and other people. But unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing today. We're seeing a lack of authenticity and vulnerability, combined with the societal pressures to present an image of perfection, which significantly contributes to the worsening mental health crisis. So although up to 140% of the population may already have personality disorder traits and toxic behaviours, it's not getting better, it's getting worse, because people are hiding their true selves. They're suppressing difficult emotions like fear, sadness, anger, or loneliness. These emotions don't simply disappear. They build up and manifest as anxiety, stress, or depression. Repression and avoidance of negative emotions can make it difficult for individuals to process them in healthy ways, leading to emotional overload and psychological distress. There has been a significant rise in anxiety and depression rates for the past decade. In the US, the suicide rate has increased by approximately 30% over the last 20 years, with a sharp rise in the last decade. The CDC reports that suicide rates among all age groups have been rising, with a particularly steep increase in younger populations. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death among young adults in the US. Suicide rates among teens aged 15 to 19 have been rising, with a sharp increase noted around 2010 to 2015. The rate has also increased significantly for young adults aged 20 to 25 in recent years. Globally, the WHO report that suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among individuals 15 to 29. These statistics suggest that there are a lot of people in this world who need help. The rising rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide, especially among younger populations, highlight the urgent need for better support systems, resources, and awareness surrounding mental health. Many of us may not have been raised with the internet or social media, which are major factors contributing to increased depression and other mental health struggles among children and teenagers today, as a result of the unrealistic standards and social comparison. Cyberbullying, pressure to perform, decreased face-to-face interaction, fear of missing out, addictive use of social media, and the exposure to negative content. Some reports suggest that even children as young to 3 to 5 years old are experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders, to where they may exhibit irritability, clinginess, trouble concentrating, or frequent tantrums. And then as they get older, the challenges they face evolve and intensify. They experience financial stress, debt, economic inequality, social inequality, which contributes to chronic health issues, such as heart disease, hypertension, and autoimmune disorders, which in turn further affects their mental health. So work environments are producing high levels of anxiety and stress, which can lead to depression, and later lead to a mental breakdown or mental illness. Dr. Julian Holt Lundstedt, a professor of psychology at Brigham Young University, stated that loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And keep in mind, the loneliness doesn't mean that you're alone. People experience loneliness even when they're surrounded by other people. This is known as social loneliness or emotional loneliness. It occurs when individuals feel disconnected or unfulfilled in their relationships despite being physically around other people. Because in today's world there is a lack of meaningful emotional connection. Most relationships are shallow, unsatisfying, and superficial, which is why most people feel like they have never truly been known. Because they lack relationships where they can express themselves or be their authentic selves. So even though they may be surrounded by other people, it may still feel emotionally unfulfilling because there is a lack of connection or meaningful interaction. In reference to the statistics mentioned in this video, clearly there is a growing mental health crisis, and yet there is a lack of sufficient public health campaigns and mental health support in schools due to factors such as power dynamics, economic interest and social stigma, and especially a lack of investment and resources. Mental health services receive less funding than other aspects of healthcare. In many countries, governments prioritise physical health and other urgent public health concerns, leaving mental health services underfunded and underdeveloped. Despite the growing prevalence of mental health conditions like anxiety, depression and suicide, governments and large corporations do not prioritise mental health support because they do not see immediate financial benefits in addressing it. They focus on profits and economic growth, which comes at the expense of public well-being. Large corporations and governments are actually deliberately undermining mental health. They are intentionally amplifying insecurity and mental distress through the use of modern media, advertisements, fashion, and even the development of cities, by promoting unrealistic standards, fostering comparisons, and emphasizing consumerism over well-being. And this is why we get all conditioned to deal with mental health problems individually, rather than collectively addressing the structural causes. They divert people's attention to managing symptoms through therapy or medication, instead of focusing on the larger societal problems that contribute to those symptoms, because it makes it easier for those in power to maintain the status quo. The pharmaceutical industry makes billions of dollars from mental health medications. Wellness industries capitalize on people's insecurities by offering products or services that promise to fix emotional or physical distress, but these are all just temporary solutions. Rather than focusing on long-term change or prevention, they get people to focus on their own individualized struggles because it's easier to ignore, instead of addressing large-scale issues like unemployment, poverty, or income inequality. They individualize mental health problems to shift the blame to personal factors, such as genetics or lifestyle choices, rather than the collective issues that create widespread distress. They do it to keep the population distracted from more political or systemic issues. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button to receive the notifications. If you would like to donate, if you would like to support the channel, you can donate at paypal.me/Narc Survivor. You could book a one-on-one with me on my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.